You know a person by their fruit, and if they're bearing godly fruit, if they are living lives that are above reproach, if they're consecrated, if they're godly, if they are servants truly absolutely pious for Christ, you cannot write them off as false prophets or whatever. But it must be comprehended that we see dimly, and we prophesy in part, and we know in part right now. So they will be mistaken sometimes. There is this man that I have been following for about 2 years now, Dr. Barry Orr. I've taken him to God so very many times, and I asked him, God, should I stop watching Barry Orr? And the Lord was like, no, he's my servant. And I once had a dream where the Lord showed me Barry arriving in heaven, excited, like happy, and I was standing in front of him, and he was like, see, we made it. This time I was right. The Lord showed me that that with all of this studying that he's doing, these searchings that he's doing to find his return in the scriptures, God showed me that one day he's going to be right. God showed me that one day he's going to be right. I then asked him, okay, are they onto something with Rosh Hashanah? Are they onto something with the Feast of Tabernacles and Trumpets? That's Rosh Hashanah, or Tabernacles, Passover, the things that they say about the Jewish feast. Are they onto something? And the Lord said, Garabo, what did I say in my word about the law? I said not a single letter of the law will ever escape. So anyone at all that wants to write off Jewish customs that I gave them as a law back in the Old Testament, anyone that wants to write it off as something that no longer is applicable because it is part of the Old Covenant, are forgetting that I will never despise my law, neither will any letter of the law go void, neither will any letter of the law go unfulfilled, type setup thing, right? So my law is perfect. The human race has been rescued from the law because they cannot fulfill it. It is rigorous, it is rigid, and it is frankly undoable because they are sinners, they're fallen. But I am God, and I put this law down, and I care for my law, and every last letter of it will be fulfilled. And so all the Jewish feasts will be fulfilled. All the sacrifice, like everything that I put down as a law will be fulfilled, but not by mankind in their fallen state. The Lord showed me that the celebrations, that the feasts and whatnot that happen in these scriptures, right, will continue to happen in the millennial reign and even in eternity future, because the law will always be fulfilled. So basically perfect holy worship in honoring the Lord to the letter will be done ultimately, eventually, by every last one of us, but perfectly this time. For we will have been redeemed out of this body of death. We will have been saved from the first Adam's calamitous sin. So then the dream that I had, yet another one about 2 days ago, where I was rocking Jewish worship attire, I was like, but God, replacement theology is a lie from the pit of hell. So why would you show me being a Jew or looking like a Jew in at the temple worshiping? I was rocking like Jewish female clothing, and those, I don't know what they call them, they're blue. They've got these blue horizontal stripes, and they're white. It looks like a little bit of a scarf that they wear when they worship, especially the men. Yeah, no, I was rocking something like that, and I was knelt down in a temple praying, worshiping God. I was like, why are you showing me in that state, God? They're the ones that rejected the Messiah. And the Lord was like, yes, they rejected the Messiah because they could not see him in the scriptures. But my law stands from here to today, to tomorrow, to forever. So their inability to recognize their Messiah is not me writing off the covenant I made with them, and it is also not me writing off the law I created for them, for that is my law. It's written on their hearts, and it is also written in heaven. I gave Moses those tablets with the 10 commandments, but they originated from where? Me, heaven. They came from heaven, and if it comes from heaven and it's my law, it endures forever. It's written, prophecy, what is this? But the word of God will never pass away. Also 1 Corinthians 13, he says something, faith and love, these they will cease, but the word of God endures forever. Yeah, something of that nature, right? In 1 Corinthians 13, I stand corrected. I would go into it, but I really don't have very much time right now because I've already been speaking for like 10,000 years. So the law will never, ever, not a single jot or tittle of it fall to the ground without doing what it is supposed to do. So what the Lord was showing me is a state where we will be perfectly lawful. So he used the Jewish worship mode, but in purity did he show me we're rocking that, displaying to me that we're about to enter into a time where we will be perfectly obedient to honor his feasts, his days, his celebrations, the things he did, Passover, all that. Like, he showed that we are a continuity from the Old Testament and not so much a break away from it. Therefore, people who roll around in the mud of replacement theology, be careful. Like, you're literally like absolutely eradicating something that God decided is fact. You can't undo what he has said is. You know what I mean? Anyway, righto. So then with these individuals all over the show talking about the feast of that, the feast of that, the feast of this, are they wrong? God was like, no, they're gathering data, but they have not yet arrived at gathering all the data. Hence why I couldn't even reconcile certain things as well. Why I doubted myself that the rapture is likely going to happen now, in this past Rosh Hashanah. Why I doubted it. I then asked the Lord, is the rapture going to happen on a Rosh Hashanah? Is it going to happen on that date? And no, he did not give me a clear stock answer. But one thing that he has been giving me for years, even before I started looking at feast dates or these people who look at Jewish timelines and the calendar, even before then, I only started looking at these guys when we got Wi-Fi in this property, and that was in 2020 when COVID-19 hit and my mom's company installed Wi-Fi on the property type establishment thing. So I didn't know about it. So me getting these dreams displays that the Lord is the same today, tomorrow, forever, whether or not you know something, you understand something. However, over time you eventually figure out why you got certain dreams, why certain understanding was given to you. I have had so many all throughout my persecution, especially 8 years, right? Dreams where New Year's Eve was a very sorrowful day for me. It's never Christmas, it is never Easter, it is never any other holiday, but New Year's Eve, it's always dark, shrouded in lots of misery, and I am alone, sad, in amidst my family members that are celebrating New Year's Eve and entering into New Year to get into countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're happy and they're also mocking me like on some every day's a holiday for you because you don't have a job. Like they're literally mocking my struggle as a Christian. I'm very sad. I don't have anybody, nobody cares, and I am always just wondering, God, when are you coming? And I also keep on telling them, you guys are in trouble. You don't know what's coming. And they would laugh at me, right? I have had that New Year's Eve dream with either family members or former friends who are mocking me. Like the most recent one, I was in some kind of a vehicle going to a New Year's Eve party with a whole bunch of former friends. I thought like long ago people, like ex-boyfriend. One of my ex-boyfriends was in the dream from long ago, and some friends, girls, chicks that I used to be friends with, partying and whatnot. And we were in this car headed to some like New Year's Eve celebration event, and I was in there as a Christian, however, so I don't know why in the heaven I was like going with them to this place, but I kept on saying, when the clock strikes 12, this was the most recent one, okay, I was like to them, when the clock strikes 12, I'm going to heaven. I literally told them, I'm going home, I'm gonna disappear when the clock strikes 12. When the clock strikes midnight, I'm going to disappear, okay? And the guys laughed at me, like my friends, the ex-boyfriend in the dream, they just laughed at me on some AU and this religious stuff. Ultimately, they dropped me off at the house of a girl that I understood. She looked like she could have been like 19, 20 years old. She looked like she was the only Christian in her family, and she also, I knew that she was a believer. So they got bored with me talking about Jesus and waiting for him to come and pick me up at midnight, right? Or for me to disappear at midnight. And so they dropped me off at this chick's house, and I understood her in my dream to be a Christian, right? She was about, like I said, 19 or 20 years old in this dream, and I expected to have peace when I walked into the house with this girl, because she was waiting just like me, and she needed company just like me, and the world of people that don't believe, that mock, are out there. So we wanted to wait together, right? I went to the house so I could wait with her together, and we recognized each other as sisters. But as soon as I walked into her house, they dropped me off outside, walked to the front door. I didn't even knock, I just opened, and as soon as I walked in, the amount of heartbreak in me, I was so disappointed. She was a beautiful, very glorious and glowing, looking indeed like a believer always looks in my dreams, but she entered into a physical fight with her mother. I expected the house to be tranquil and peaceful, but where she was at, there was also war. And I was like, but I ran away from those cantankerous friends of mine who are unbelieving to hang out with you because your space is so peaceful and so tranquil because you're a Christian. But it turns out that she was living with someone who wasn't a believer, so she was also at war. And this time her fight was very bad because it was physical with her own mom. And then and then the dream ended. When I woke up, I was like, what were you showing me there, God? I remembered Matthew 10. He said in the scriptures that from now on, a man's enemies will be members of their own household. Right? So that woman, that girl in my dream, was also at war with her family members. She was also waiting on Christ, but in a lot of agony, and there was a lot of division and fighting that she was engaged in actively with people in her life that were persecuting her. Like her mother attacked her, and then she fought back with her hands. It was like self-defense for her, but she was always fighting. And so I realized that that I couldn't find peace in that house. I was trying to run away from my mean bad friends to go and hang out with a Christian, but then when I went into the Christian's house, she was fighting so much that there was no peace there. So I remember just standing in the dream on some, where shall we go then to find peace? Where shall we go? I can't even hang out with my brethren and be at peace because they are having battles of their own on the side. So God was basically showing me that what was like the world. First of all, like I said, New Year's Eve, right? That's where it was. The dream never ever got into New Year's Day, but I believed that I was leaving. I was being mocked for believing that. They were laughing at me. I try to hang out with Christians because they're the only ones that understand, and she was fighting. She was warring with somebody, and so I couldn't chill where she was at. God was showing me that when he raptures the church, we are going to feel like there's nowhere to go for us, and I already feel like that right now. Like we can't even go to a brother in Christ and rest, or a sister in Christ and rest, because in and of themselves they're going to be so under attack from spellcasters and family members who are persecuting them, and friends who are mocking and jeering at them, and wicked forced laws coming down on them for their Christian faith and all that jazz, that they're going to struggle to truly be, like kumbaya my Lord, kumbaya. They're going to struggle to be at peace with each other, to just huddle with each other, because the issues in their individual lives are going to be so bad and so extreme because of abuse and Christian persecution that they're going to struggle to truly comfort each other. They're just going to be in a battle on their own so extremely that we're going to struggle to even hang out with each other, the way the devil is going to make war with us and to try and overcome us. I'm there. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Christians are not all there, but I am hard to hang with right now by anybody in the Christian faith because of my own battle that I am enduring. So the Lord was basically showing me that that's going to be the state of the world when he takes us in the rapture. And also what do you call this, the New Year's Eve theme. The New Year's Eve theme, I only was able to understand why he keeps on showing me such dreams. They're always very dystopian for me only, and I always am very mocked by the ecosystem around me, and I wake up feeling very sad. And for years I've also endured indeed very lonely New Year's Eves for 8 years straight and counting, right? So I thought that that's just what God was showing me until I started watching Rapture guys that are speculating on when the Lord is going to take the church, harpazo style, and they mentioned this day, there's like a Rosh Hashanah, and I didn't even know what it meant. I was just listening. It was all these Jewish terms being thrown, and I was just being confused, and my eyes were squinting and what have you. But after listening to enough of them, eventually you catch wind, right? And I found out that it is literally the Jewish New Year. It marks the beginning of the Jewish New Year. It enters people into the Jews into their New Year, and when that was made clear to me, I was like, literally like goosebumps like raised on my hands on some. So God was basically showing me that he is going to take us on a Rosh Hashanah, like on the eve of the new year. He's not going to take us on the new year, but on the eve of I understood in that dream that when the clock strikes 12, I'm going to disappear. And this was the first time that I ever said I'm going to disappear. But in all my other dreams, there's always a very hard knock dystopia, and I'm warning everybody and they're mocking me, and I never make it into the new year. The dream never gets into, the new year. It's just the run up to, and I'm being mocked and teased. God was showing me what it is that everybody has known all along, but because I lacked knowledge, I couldn't put the two pieces of the puzzle together, that God was showing me Rosh Hashanah. So he is basically saying, no, don't write off Jewish dates. And since we've missed it this year, guys, we need to wait to see if it'll happen next year. And also there are people who claim that the Jewish calendar, because of their disobedience of God to God, is off by 1 month, meaning that it's actually rather in October or something on the 26th, and the real Rosh Hashanah. So maybe they're still within that window. Otherwise, from what what God is showing me, again, I stand corrected. From what he's showing me, if we miss the rapture this year in Rosh Hashanah, next year is the next time that we can check, and the following year and the following year. And so they're not wrong. God is showing me that the body of believers all over the world that are busy waiting to see for his return around that time, they're not wrong, because one day it's gonna happen on that date. Hence I had the dream with Barry Orr, and I arriving in heaven, well, us as the saints, basically all of us getting caught up, and he was dancing with me and celebrating in his own skin, saying, this time I was right, this time I was right. And God himself said to me that then he's going to be right eventually. He's going to be right eventually. So I then went on and asked him, what is going to make him right? What is going to be the difference between him and being right and not so right? What is going to be the difference? And the Lord was like, the world events around. That's what I could not reconcile. That's what I couldn't reconcile. That's why I wasn't too excited this year, but I was excited enough, right? Because there are certain things that have not happened that I'm pretty certain cannot happen. The rapture can't happen unless these things are aligned. For me, it's more about aligned as opposed to them having actually happened. This year was super exciting because of indeed those red heifers that arrived in Israel. But what's true is that there have to be 10 of them. There's only 5 at present, and these red heifers are 5 months old. They're 5 months old. In order for them to do sacrifices, they have to be 2 years old, and in that 2-year season, they cannot grow any white hairs. They cannot grow any black hairs. They cannot get a scar on them. They cannot get blemished. So we are basically dealing with a year and 7 months of waiting to see if these red heifers are going to be ripe and ready, and there has to be a donation given them of 5 more of these red heifers. They have to come. It has to be 10. So that's the thing that made me be like, everything indeed is marked for the rebuilding of the temple. Now, we don't sacrifice bulls and goats anymore because Christ is the perfect sacrifice. But remember, they're still doing the rituals, and they're still going, the Jews are still going to continue in disobedience to their real Messiah until they find out who is the Messiah. So this temple where they're going to be sacrificing at, they're going to be doing that, waiting for their Messiah, until the abomination that causes desolation that stands in the holy place, who is the Antichrist, is going to make them realize that, oh snap, like this guy's not who it is that we think he is, because he's gone on and claimed himself to be God. So at that stage, they're going to realize that Jesus Christ is Lord, and so therefore also realize what a waste of time it is to be slaughtering these bulls, these cows. What a waste of time it is to have even done any of these rituals that they're doing, because they were disobedient to their God. So it is important for them to get the red heifers, because they have to build the temple, because the prophecy of the abomination of desolation has to be fulfilled. So their disobedience is important for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. So them finding these red heifers is yet another act of their disobedience, but something that will fulfill prophecy. So people who write off these heifers on some, but we're not supposed to be cutting up the blood of goats and bulls anymore. Yes, we're not, but they have to keep on doing it to fulfill prophecy. The fullness of their rebellion must be fulfilled by acts of this nature. So when the Lord then avails another 5 red heifers that are clean, unspotted, unblemished, and will stay that way up until the age of 2, then we know that we're good. Then we know that we're good. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they're too young. But then again, maybe not young enough, because remember, the 3.5-year mark of the tribulation is when the Jews are going to realize that, oh my goodness, this guy doesn't make sense, right? A type setup thing. So indeed, it could happen now with that red heifer prophecy. But what always just like pulls my hairs out of place, that really is causing me lots of despair, because guys, man, I'm tired of this place. I just want to go home, and I desire that the Lord should like fast track that process. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm exhausted and I want to go home, and for as long as this has not yet happened, I can't really look too forward to what's going on. For me, the ruination of Damascus, for me, the war of Gog and Magog, for me, the Ezekiel 83 war, which some people suggest is also the same as the Gog-Magog war. These things need to happen. And remember, like I said earlier, everything that needs to happen has a starting time. Like, if you have a colleague in the office that you are envious of, it takes some time before your jealousy causes out of you to become a saboteur. First, you look at them with a grimacing face, and then you just page with lackluster fingertips through all of their emails that they write, like they stank. And then that's when you start to speak badly about them with other colleagues, and then you lie to them about them to your boss, and then you stab them in the back by causing them to lose their job by sabotaging a project. Before it gets to the point of war, basically, their first is that glimpse, looking at her like that, basically gnashing your teeth. And that initial seed that is planted in your heart is indeed like the sin that is crouching at your door, and its desires to have you, and you must conquer it before it can fully burgeon into something very destructive. It has to have, lockstep piecemeal processes. You kind of have to live step by step until ultimately you have stabbed the poor woman in the back to a point of loss of career, right? Anger is overwhelming, fury is a flood, but who can stand before jealousy? Well, jealousy is similar to covetousness or envy, and the envy of God's land, the lust that people have on their tongues for the resources of Israel, for the parting of their land, for the thieving away of their minerals and their vineyards and their basically milk and honey is the salivation has been happening for years. And the Lord, it is written in in Ezekiel 37 and 38, or is it 38 and 9? It is written that he is the one that goes on right ahead and puts a hook in the jaw of the leader of Magog, that is Gog, right? That would be, people say Russia, others say it is Turkey. It looks more to me like it's Russia, but I'm not about to peg that in the ground at all, because I do not claim to be an expert in this regard. I'm still learning, right? But it looks like Russia right now. It absolutely looks like Russia, but I can't really say that it looks like Vladimir Putin in particular, but it definitely looks like Russia. So he might just be scooted or booted out and some other new dude will do this. Don't know, right? The hook in the jaw is similar to that initial ugly eye of jealousy. It's like Saul, you know how before he attacked David, he first developed very strong feelings of hostility. He got that evil jealous eye. Then he pounced on him. It took time for him to get there. So it takes time for those who covet and envy the resources of the Golan Heights, the resources of Jerusalem. It takes time for them to eventually drop nukes on there, or attempt anyway. It takes time for them to brazenly make like Vladimir Putin and, to Ukraine and just invade. It takes time before a person that covets the glory of a land to eventually just go on right ahead and just do it, take it. It takes time. And for me, it is that amount of time that it takes that frazzles my hair out of place, because I don't want to wait it. Do you understand? It's long, and as long as that amount of time is, I'm frustrated with this planet. I'm frustrated with this world, with this life, to a point it's really bad, where I've even asked the Lord, then if not Asol, then reprieve me alone. Basically asking for him to out me the way that he did, that Elijah asked. But every time I pray a prayer of that nature, he just responds by saying, get up and eat, for your journey is still too great, much like he did with Elijah. 7,000 others have not knelt to Baal, so get up, work. Habakkuk, Jeremiah, if you cannot battle with men on foot, what are you going to do then when you're dealing with men on horseback? For crying out loud, strengthen yourself. You know what I mean? Stop being such a cry baby. Jonah, stop being a cry baby. So I have to constantly snap out of cry baby mode. The power is returned. I have to constantly snap out of cry baby mode with great difficulty. I shall highlight, I preferred when the light was off, guys, so our back. Yeah, I switched it off. Yeah, no, I have to constantly snap myself out of crybaby mode, because I'm really frazzled. So what then have I made a decision to do, since we're still waiting, is I guess carry on with what I've been doing all along, try and grow my YouTube channel. I'm back to doing my shorts now. I'm back to basically just trying to get it to monetize, do you understand, and all that jazz, since we're likely still going to be here another year, at a minimum another year, and I'm hoping that it's just a year, just a year, guys. I hope this is it, really and truly, for the life of me. I hope it's just one more year for these things to happen, because all the things that are needed for that hook in the jaw to indeed land in in Vladimir Putin, if at all he is Gog, right? They're in place. Everything is in place right now. World leaders are acting a royal mess. They are greedy little children that just want more, and they don't care for world safety. friendly at all. They are threatening nukes all over the show. Things are buzzing right by everybody's nose that are very cataclysmic, and they don't quite seem to realize it's problematic for the earth at large. They're like children throwing their toys out the cot, and the toys are weapons of mass destruction, and it's what's needed to make things kind of, do that. So essentially, I believe that people very potentially might have 1 year to repent, because like I said, those red heifers, there's 5. There might be another 5 given them in the next year. On top of that, the Yair Lapid, their interim prime minister, who is the biggest backstabber of Israel in the back ever since a prime minister ever came to be, has just gone on right ahead to say, this is what he said, that he's happy for a 2-state solution. Now, the Yair Lapid statement that he's happy for a 2-state solution, he is saying that knowing that he's being smart. It's like reverse psychology. Thank you. Yair Lapid is a reverse psychologist in a way that Netanyahu and Bennett weren't. Do you understand? He knows that because there was a condition that he gave to agree to this 2-state solution, and that condition was, if y'all will down tools, go and find me any Arab, Muslim, Palestinian guy chilling at the Gaza Strip to literally give their weapon to the earth and bury it. I dare you. I dare you to cause a whole bunch of these guys to decide to down their tools. No, they're not. There's a great deal of hostility. He claims that most Hebrews, Israelis are happy to sign their life over to the 2-state solution, but I'm pretty sure that's not true. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the resonating heart of Hebrews or Israelites that come online to talk about what's going on, whether or not they're Christian or Orthodox Jew, is that they loathe the prospect of sharing Israel with the Palestinians. So I don't know where he gets his opinion from. It definitely cannot be from any real story. And on top of that, the Bible makes it clear that that can never happen. Whether or not so an attempt at it is what it is, that is then the salivation over the land of Israel. Yair Lapid is a reverse psychologist. He knows that the people on the war between them and Palestine and all the other supporters of Palestine, he knows that they're not going to down their tools. So he's not giving Israel over. He just knows that he's basically putting them in a position to be the wrong ones. He has put the ball in their court. He has said, we will down tools if you down tools, and we'll have peace. But he knows they're violent, and he knows they're not going to down tools. So what's that going to cause? It's going to cause so much war and strife around Israel until things get to a point where now people are trying to take it by force. Right? And Israel must also have no support for Gog and Magog and Psalm 83 to happen. They must have no support, nobody coming for them. How in the world do they not have support or anybody coming for them? There has to have been a weakening of the alliances that they have around the world. Now that weakening, I thoroughly believe that it could be caused by the rapture, in the sense that if the rapture happens, that will give an otherwise trepidatious Russia, Vladimir Putin, and now that there's all this calamitous flying around all over the show of people, because there's a whole bunch of people that have disappeared, it could give him the bravado he has been threatening all along to finally just nuke the US. Calamity, like anarchy. It's like looting a store, taking for granted a situation that is already cantankerous, running around like a headless chicken, and then you go into a store and you grab what you've always wanted without paying for it. So he wants the power of the United States, so too does Xi. President Xi's economy, by the way, guys, everything is aligning up. His economy, China, which has been a burgeoning superpower, we guys know that, right? It's tanking, it's giving in, it's a horsey that's starting to kick its last kicks. The Chinese economy is suffering. Of course it's suffering because they've been the most draconian ever since the whole COVID-19 random thing that happened, right? So Xi, the President Xi, and Putin, who are now so allied together to a point where Xi now wants to give Putin soldiers, men, bodies, boots on the ground for the war in Ukraine. There was a time when he was unprepared to admit that he stands with Russia, but he was also unprepared to say that he doesn't stand with Russia. Now he is giving soldiers. So they are boldly declaring their alliance, and not only are they boldly declaring their alliance, they're also doing things in such a way so as to suggest to the United States that make one wrong move and you're in a whole bunch of deep trouble. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're becoming bolder, bravado. So that's the hook in the jaws of all these leaders all over the show. But when then you have already been salivating after something, what is the best place to just go and pounce after it when there is some calamitous event in the world that is uncontrolled yet, and the rapture is that event. So I can see how the support of Israel would be wiped away in one night by the nuking of the United States. After all, it is not mentioned in Bible prophecy, and that likely might be the reason why, because it literally gets wiped off the face of the earth before it can even do anything relevant. And so if you power the United States all of a sudden, I mean, that's the only way that you can bring the United States down quickly, guys. It's if something that is very full of anarchy causes an immediate coup by somebody who has power to do so. So that's the only way that I can imagine the US being out of the picture. And once the US is out of the picture, that takes out a massive alliance of many of the European nations. They will likely just bow down to whatever, so they don't get nuked and become the second United States of America. They will likely just go on right ahead and accept the terms of Vladimir Putin. Only look, guys, you know, Putin's strategy, everybody thought it wouldn't work in Ukraine. It is actually working. Terrorize them until they vote for peace. Literally frazzle them so much, afflict them so hard, pounce on them so heavy, and put your ravenous like fags on their necks and threaten to drive them in, getting to a jugular so hard now that they will have to then vote to either have you leave them alone or you eat them up. And the only way that you will leave them alone is if they agree that instead of you going in for the kill on their neck, you would rather take their arm. Instead of you killing them, period, just amputate a body part so they get to live without a body part. Vladimir Putin went on and pounced on Ukraine, and then recently they have held a vote, a poll voting in some of the districts that he has taken over, the provinces, and apparently 90% of the Ukrainian force voted to be part of Russia. Not force, but the people, the civilians, they voted to be part of Russia. They never would have done that at the beginning of the war, but now they are. Why? Because they're being killed, they're being massacred, they're losing family members, and they just want peace. So he's on their neck and he's saying, I will get off your neck if only you will give me your arm, give me your province, give me this area. So it's like by weekend, like it's just attrition. It's a form of torture, attrition. Pressurize them until eventually they capitulate. Well, by attrition, same way that they're doing with the Ukraine, I believe that like Russia is going to prosper to subdue much of Europe, to accept its like little pompous USSR ideologies if it can decimate one of like a world superpower, if it can mow to the ground the United States. In the United Kingdom, there where they're at, they're going to be like the UK, France, wherever else, Germany. They're going to basically be like, look, we don't want another situation. There's already too much calamity. Too many Americans are trying to fly all over the show to try and come live with us because now there's no longer any land habitable for them. We don't want this. We need to try and rescue the earth, dude. Like, fine, take your USSR, fine. Russia has to be big enough, huge enough. And running, the thing about the Bible says, like death and Sheol, the eye of man is never satisfied. So when people acquire things, they just want more and more and more. So after like gaining all those territories, Vladimir Putin will just want more. And because of their dwindling economies, the war will have ransacked the economy of Russia. Look at how right now the economy of China is being ransacked, even though they're not truly at war, type establishment thing. So if at all they go to war, and because of all of this cooing of other people's lands, they're going to need resources to rebuild themselves again, that they might become plump superpowers indeed, right? And so how in the world are they going to, now that they've taken over everything they can possibly take over? You know, it's written in God's word about how it is that there's going to be plunder taken from Babylon that falls or something, right? The UK, the basically the European Union, okay, is likely going to plunder what's left of the United States, and try and, like, you know, share it among themselves, see what they can take over, how in the world they can do a Russian occupation. Sorry, before the Russian occupation officially hits there, what can they do? What can they do? What can they do? So now when all the world's resources, not all the world's, but when the world's superpowers resources have been plundered, where to go next? We need more money, we need more gold, we need more land, we need more oil. Where to go? What other lands can we just like take? What else? So then, I mean, where is there a nation in the land that has been given a sweet description as having many resources? Israel is the land flowing with milk and honey. They will no longer have the United States. Any allies they have in the European Union are likely going to cower away from them, and so they are going to have no support or aiding at all. So the rapture could indeed lead lead to what do you call this thing, the Gog and Magog war. It could lead to that, where now Russia decides, just like they did with Ukraine, that okay, look, I think I'm gonna go for Israel, I want it, and Iran is gonna go up with them, Turkey, etc., all these other countries, and then they're just gonna take the land over. But this is what gets me. This is what absolutely frazzles me and takes my hairs out of place. The thing that I struggled with God to say, but this is not a piece of a puzzle that I'm quite putting or fixing in a place. In Ezekiel 38 and 39, it is written that when my people in the last days and the latter years are living in a land of peace, in a land of unwalled villages, then he will put a hook in the jaw of Gog. That calamitous situation I just described right now is not going to cause Israel to just chill out, relax, and not build a fence around their house anymore. So what would cause Israel to be unwalled? What would make them at peace? That's the piece of the puzzle that made me struggle to rock up and speak this message. Because for me, it was like, we first have to wait for Israel to be a land of unwalled villages. Right now, it's not. I initially thought the two-state solution with Palestine would cause it to be unwalled. But the Lord will never allow a parting of his land. The people will try, but it will always fail. What not Naphtali, who's this? Yair Lapid is doing is going to backfire, because these people are going to refuse to down their tools. They're not going to be able to. They're going to refuse. There are some Palestinians that believe that all of Jerusalem belongs to them. So they're going to have difficulty in figuring out which land, which part is which, and there will be some breakaway rebel groups that will just have their own ideologies, and so they will never ever foster peace in that region. It's literally never going to happen. It's also written in God's word that only Christ is the one that's going to bring peace to the Middle East. Only him, right? So we know it's not going to happen, meaning that the two-state solution is just talk right now. It's like the Iranian nuclear deal, blah blah talk speak. Like it's still a thing that everybody's wondering what's going to happen to it, right? Since that's not going to happen, there will continue to be conflicts in the Middle East, and they will continue to ramp up. So what under heaven would cause unwalled villages? What, guys? What would do that? Like literally nothing makes sense, even in the slightest right now. And the only thing that I could think about is that the rapture happens, causing calamity, causing Russia to just loot. Think about the looting that happened during those Black Lives Matter riots after George Floyd passed away. How many of those rioters are in prison? How many of those looters are in prison? Probably a handful, if at all any. They likely have been let out on bail because their prisons are too full. The thing about looting and plundering a situation after somebody breaks it down is that hardly ever does anybody get brought to justice just for the sake of peace at all. What tends to happen in environments like those is that people then agree to stop fighting, and then they are granted amnesty to just, be within their demarcations now. So you nuke the United States, and then there's a whole bunch of looting going on. And once this looting starts happening, ultimately somebody hooks up on some guys. Come on, look at that. We have to be big children now. What we'll do is forget that you nuked the US. Just agree to be peaceful. What you can do is that what you're gonna do is basically just kind of say sorry, give asylum to any of the Americans that are still around standing, and we're gonna try and build a new world where things are a little bit better. They would need to hand power over to a guy that's going to be like and basically cause them to be neat, and he will grant amnesty to world leaders who frankly need to be guillotined, or who need to be hung, who need to be decimated for crimes against humanity. He will give them amnesty insofar as they agree to down tools, and so they will likely down tools, because there'll be so much calamity that that'll be the only thing that makes sense. And so once then they down tools, at that stage, that's when they likely would be, that peace treaty, that solution that he brings forward. And with that peace treaty, only then can there then be unwalled villages in Israel. Now, the rapture happens. The tribulation is 7 years. My question to God then was, does the tribulation happen immediately after the rapture? And while I don't have a solid yes or a no from God, just based on speculation alone, my answer would be no. I believe the rapture will happen. It will cause so much calamity across the world that just to find peace, people will then enter into an ultimate deal. But before the deal happens, there will likely be a bridge of time where people are just doing their own thing. Christians on the ground that are now saved because they know what happened will be checking out videos on YouTube. I've been wondering, God, okay, so I'm doing content for the tribulation. How long is this stuff going to stay on YouTube? And I believe the Lord, because of the amount of work that he's causing Christians to do in the run-up to explaining the tribulation, I believe he's basically saying, you guys don't worry, your content is going to be literally chilling on YouTube for a minute after you leave, because there's not yet going to be so much hard knock Christian persecution on the earth that they would bring down anything at all spoken about God. It's going to take the reign of the Antichrist to slowly but surely bring down the videos of Christians on YouTube, but it's going to take time. Things like that tend to take time. Creation of a despotic society that is very dystopian takes time. People have to gradually give over their rights. So YouTube is not going to suddenly shut down Christian content. It's going to happen little by little. And so in the one minute, guys, sorry, and so in the run-up then to all of our stuff leaving online, remember the other day I told you, and I will still continue to say this, the Lord showed me Marcus Rogers gets left behind in the rapture. He doesn't go, but that he's going to be a very prolific voice in the tribulation now that he has repented, right? Type establishment thing, and that he's going to continue with his channel on YouTube the way that it is, and he's going to be able to continue for a while with his channel the way that it is, meaning that they're not yet censoring or smothering the Christian voices. Now, I don't know where he's going to be if the US gets bombed or whatever, but you get my point, right? So if there is a bridge of time between the beginning of the tribulation and the rapture, however long this season might be, it might explain then how it is that Israel gets to a point where it has unwalled villages, because immediately after the rapture, more so are people going to want to erect fences around their households. More so are people going to want to seriously surveil and conceal themselves. Do you understand? So they need to be given a time where they believe in peace. He says in the word, God, they will be saying peace and security, and all of a sudden calamity is gonna afflict them. How do you say peace and security when a whole bunch of people have just disappeared off the earth and the tribulation starts straight away? Now, if you go and read the Lord's word in the book of Revelation about the beginning of the tribulation, what God is doing, what he's gonna do, I'm not gonna read it, I'm just gonna literally scan through it, because guys, I've been speaking for like ever in a day, right? But the seal judgments in Revelation 6, right? The seal judgments, my goodness, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The first one conquers and conquering and to conquer, and then the next one brings a great sword, so people will just kill each other, right? So think all of that like looting and what have you. And then the next one is the black horse that brings famine, and then the next one is death, and Hades follows him, which I believe are actual zombies, right? I believe these are actual zombies, right? So there are zombies walking around on the earth, right? Of the name is as death, given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill. A fourth is a quarter, guys. Like, that's 25%. What's 25% of? I don't even think 1 billion Christians are going to be leaving, because I don't think there's that many of us. I think it's more within the millions. But let's say then, for the sake of analogy, that there are 7 billion people left on the earth, exactly 7 billion. So the 1 billion that would make up the 8 are now in heaven, right? What is a third of 7, guys? It's about like 2.3 billion people. Not like, so many people do not all die in one sitting and there be any kind of tranquility on the earth. It's calamity through and through. And the thing about the plagues in the book of the Lord in Revelation, they are one after the other after the other. They don't stop, meaning there must be a time in the middle where people are trying to put a band-aid on this cancer, spray cologne on the corpse, that is the rapture. They will try and explain it away and be able to actually carry on with life as normal. Same way that COVID-19 stole the lives of so many people, but now we're carrying on and living. So, like, it's just like any other plague that smacks us as the human race. The bubonic plague. This one will be very, very different in the sense that, okay, so like people disappeared. That's kind of weird, but, it's still like the bubonic plague. About 1 billion people died worldwide. Yeah, they're gonna go back to normal. And I'm gonna get to why I believe that as well, because God gave me yet another, not so much dream, but dreams across the years that he's been showing me this, right? So that's the 4th horseman of the apocalypse. And then there are the seals going forward after the 4 horsemen. And then there are martyrs who cry, right, under the altar. Then they're given a robe, and then there is a massive earthquake. The moon becomes like blood. The stars don't give their light, and every mountain and island is removed from its place, likely because of the earthquake. The kings of the earth, basically people generally, are like, whoa, rocks fall on us, hide us from the one who is seated on the throne. And then and at this stage, like, go shubile, it's hectic. This is a world that, 1, I believe zombies are there. 2, a quarter of the earth is dead. 3, earthquakes that are gargantuan are ridiculous. And they're so bad, these places, that leaders, governments, like counselors and premiers and presidents are hiding somewhere, and they're busy asking rocks to fall on them. No one is driving home anymore and watching television at night. It's calamity all over. This calamity, there is no way under heaven that Israel would be a land of unwalled villages in the middle of it. These are global catastrophes. And then the Lord brings the 144,000. Because they're absolutely necessary. So the only explanation that I can have as to what getting Gog and Magog happening in the tribulation is if there is a brief season, however long it might be, a year, 2, 3, where people overcome the fact that a whole bunch of people disappeared, and then they're given some kind of fake idea as to what happened, and they carry on with life even though they're mourning their loved ones. Those who are Christian will know better. You know what I mean? Those who are born again, who get born again because of the rapture, they will know better, and then they will like create peace because of the calamity that tends to get caused by an event like a snatching away of a whole bunch of people. There's going to be car theft, looting, murder, blah blah blah, and in order for people to go back to normal again, they will then eventually agree to there's going to be a dude that's going to rock up that they're all going to adore because of the fact that he will prosper to calm everyone down after that strange event that happened in 2000 and whatever. When that happens, then finally people are going to be given a peace that they've never experienced on earth before, because they'll eventually be in one accord with a one world government. That's the only time that I can ever imagine Israel having no walls anymore, where finally there is a successful ceasefire from the surrounding nations around Israel, who will stop dropping bombs in their ecosystem and vice versa. That's when they have a land of unwalled villages. But remember, the eye of man is never satisfied, and despite this peace deal having been made, there's going to be a charging, a stirring by God in a man with a hook in his jaw to covet the land of Israel, salivate after it, for he will be trying to build his empire. And so, just like the disregard he had for the sovereignty of Ukraine, he will then go on, if it is Putin, right, he will then go on to, without any regard at all, in agreement with the surrounding nations, then literally wreak havoc in the life of Israel.